Lincoln 103, 5 Lincoln 102, Lincoln 103 and 102.
Responding to 401 parking structure, section 1 boy.
Henry 8, Henry 9. Respond to gate 437 Bravo for your dignitary detail. 3K 911 unattended 400 lower level near carousel 4 black bag. GTA in progress 401 parking structure section 4 boy.
Responding to 401 parking structure, section 1 boy.
415 passenger onboard aircraft.
Control 2 Franklin en route.
484 suspect is female, Hispanic, 28 years of age, blue jeans, no further.
Control 5 Frank 401 is en route.
Good morning, Private Officer Radio audience. 7 o'clock, straight up, here in the studios in Charlotte, North Carolina. Glad that we're on the air with you again today, and we're glad that you're listening to us again today here at the Private Officer Beat Radio. We've got a full show packed again for you today. A lot of information, news, and of course, we're going to be talking about a subject that it's in the news every place. You can't go anywhere. You can't read anything. You can't hear anything. You can't see anything without talking and seeing and hearing about active shooters, about school security, about death and mayhem, and rightly so. And we're going to be talking about that. We're going to put our 2 cents in there and talk about school security as well. At the bottom half of this program, we'll be talking about that. We have a lot of breaking news going on. Of course, we're going to be sharing that with you. We'll be talking with you as well in the program about some new training opportunities for you and a whole bunch more. In fact, over the last couple of weeks, we've been extremely busy as we are growing our business and expanding, the realm of possibilities for us, and as a corporation, as a group, and as a family of businesses, we want to make sure that we don't leave you out, of course. So there's obviously going to be some opportunities for you, and we'll be talking about that as well. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Maybe you are, maybe you're not, but law enforcement deaths are up nationwide for the second year in a row. Murders of police officers up 123%. And while that definitely is alarming, what's even more alarming is that those deaths are murders, not vehicle accidents, not training accidents, not heart attacks. These are actual fatalities through trauma, through being attacked, by being shot. And it doesn't look like that's going to slow down anytime soon. Luckily for us, here on the private side, we have had kind of a quasi-quiet type intro to 2018, thank goodness, and we're not, we're not trying to make things get any worse. We're not trying to bring any bad luck to us, but things have been a little on the quiet side. Although one of the shocking statistics, I guess, that we are seeing for the last 3 years is the trend of fatal shootings by private security are up for the last 3 years. We have topped around 250 fatal shootings by private security this year. Right now, there's been 36 fatal shootings, the latest one being Friday during a bank robbery in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, fatal shootings by security in the last 3 years have increased, and many people want to know why. Many people are asking, is this a trend? Is something wrong with these stats? And there's also been some questions about whether or not these were all legitimate security guards, security officers, whether or not they were licensed and so forth. So let me address a couple of those concerns before we go into the rest of our program, because there's been a number of emails and social media comments and people that want to know not only how, and why these shootings continue to happen, but also how we get our statistics and how we come up with what's going on. So the number of security officer shootings are not something that we make up. They're actually collected through law enforcement, PIO, public information officer, press releases to the media. We collect it through other media data, media reports, news sites, reports by government facilities, outlets, media, as well as direct reports that come to us that we confirm and verify. We vet all of this information before we release it. The number of security officer fatal shootings this year all come from government and media sources. They're not numbers that we made up, they're actual numbers. Now, to address a couple of questions, as a matter of fact, more than a couple, probably about a dozen, questions that have been raised on social media, Facebook and Twitter, as well as emails that we have received in the last week or so. I want you to understand that security officers are not licensed and require no training in many states. Although the majority of the U.S. do have regulatory statutes in place that require security officers to be licensed, not all do. And in fact, some only require that the company be licensed, not the security officer. There are many cities and areas that do not require bouncers or nightclub security to be licensed. And there are many states, the majority, in fact, of our U.S. states, do not require proprietary security to be licensed. So if you're a nightclub security officer, if you are a loss prevention officer at Macy's, if you're a hotel security officer at the Holiday Inn, in many areas, you do not have to be licensed. That does not mean you're not a security officer, because you are, as long as you have been hired for that position. It's just like in many states, general contractors and carpenters do not have to be licensed. You have to be bonded in case you screw up, but you don't have to be licensed. So some of the comments that we've seen over the last week or so is that, are these legitimate security officers, or are we just trying to make up the numbers and make it look bad for security? So no, we're not doing anything. We are going by the letter of the law, what is required in different states. Now, if someone is involved in a fatal shooting, let's say in California, and it's required of them to be licensed as a proprietary security officer, and they're not, and they get involved in a shooting, then we don't necessarily classify them as a security officer, but we do classify it as a shooting at the nightclub involving someone who was working in a position, legal or not, of security. The other thing not to be confused about is that proprietary security are those people who work internally for one employer and not through a contract service. Check your state. Check your law. We here at Private Officer International have been advocates for the last, 10 to 15 years that all security officers, whether you work internally or for a contract agency, in all states should be licensed and required to go through minimal training. And we pushed that through a couple of locations. We're trying to negotiate with other states, and we hope that that becomes a law in every state. But right now, it's not. So just because they're not licensed doesn't mean that they're not security officers, because they are. It just depends on the requirements, the regulatory requirements of that state or that county or that city. And in some states, there is no state security license. There's only a county or a city license. Let's take Colorado, for instance. Big marijuana capital of the U.S. almost now. So here in Colorado, you have security officers working at marijuana dispensaries. You have security officers working at all sorts of properties. But in Colorado, there is no state licensing. There's no state licensing in Michigan, Kentucky, Mississippi, and other states. However, certain large cities within those states do register their security officers for firearm purposes only. No training other than firearm, and they do register them in Denver and Colorado Springs, for instance, in Colorado. However, elsewhere within the state, there is no state license. Same thing in Kentucky. There's no license required in Kentucky, but if you go to Louisville, the big major city there, they require that you become licensed with the city if you're going to carry a firearm. So on and so forth. We have some cities that do require a license even when the state does not. So again, yes, everyone involved in these 36 fatal shootings so far this year was a security officer. They weren't playing one. They didn't just decide to become, no, it's all legit, folks. If you have any questions about anything, how we collect data, why we collect data, who collects the data, whatever, contact us, helpdesk@privateofficer.com, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. We have been collecting statistics for, probably most of the 15 years that we've been in business, and we've been doing it for governmental agencies and national statistics for at least 10 to 12 years. So we've become very good at it. We know how to vet it, how to qualify it. We know how to confirm it, and we don't usually will release any information, especially like a security officer killed on duty or something that's we're saying is a national statistic, until we've verified it and we've made sure it's legit. I hope that answers some of your questions. I know that we had quite a few comments on social media, and we wanted to clear that up for you. Also, while we're on the subject, or while we're talking about how we do business here, several folks have inquired recently about some of the services that we offer. If we're an association, why are we offering training to churches and schools and so forth? And Private Officer International did begin as an association, but we have expanded our services, our offerings throughout the years. And as I said at the top of this opening here at the radio program this morning, we're expanding again, and we are taking on more services and more companies. So we're a corporation. As with any business, you either grow or you go out of business. Obviously, if I was McDonald's and I'm only selling 1,000 hamburgers a month, I probably wouldn't be able to stay in business. So we are a corporation, we are a business, and we are expanding our services and the things that we do. So hopefully that explains that as well. Again, you are listening to the Private Officer Beat Radio. I'm your host, Rick McCann. I'm the founder and CEO of Private Officer International, Armor College, and several other entities. And we are glad, as a corporation, as a business, we're glad that we've been able to expand our radio program over the years and really get the message out from a local message now to an international message via the internet. And that's why we use this platform exclusively now, is to push our message out beyond the U.S. borders. We have listeners in many countries all around the world, and that's about to grow as well, because we are expanding our radio platform as we are looking and negotiating with another provider, much larger provider, a much larger platform to push our radio program out, to get our message out to more listeners, and we hope to get that probably within the next 60 to 90 days or less. We'll probably get that initiated. And it's a very popular program. In fact, it's part of the iHeartRadio network. It'll also be on several other radio networks. So our message will, again, grow larger. Our audience will grow larger. And thus, the message of Private Officer International grows. And we really are looking forward to being able to reach more people, help more people, gain more members, and grow our business as we are completing our mission every single day, because we do have a mission, and that is to help those frontline protectors, those working in private security, public safety, loss prevention, private police, investigations, so on and so forth, to be prepared, to have the training that they need, and of course, we're here for them. and we want to be able to provide a service, training, resources that no other company is providing. Well, I've got that out of the way, it appears, huh? Oh, we are really pushing on this morning, almost 15 minutes after the hour. Actually, 14 minutes right now after the hour, 7:14 on the East Coast, 6:14 if you're living in Nashville, Tennessee, or somewheres in that area. And, of course, out there on the West Coast, you're still sleeping. You're not worried about the radio. You're not worried about this message. But I'm sure you'll be catching it on demand later on in the day. We're going to take our first break. When I come back, we're going to be talking about sponsorship, social media, the breaking news, and some training opportunities that's coming up. And, of course, at the bottom of this program, we're going to be talking about school security and how we can make it better, how you can make it better, and just kind of put in our 2 cents, and maybe we'll be able to solve these world problems. We're coming right back here on the Private Officer Beat. Don't go away.
Are cracking down on seatbelt violations. Buckle up day and night or expect a ticket. It doesn't matter who you are or where you live, they'll be on the lookout. Cops write tickets to save lives. Click it for a ticket.
All right, we are back with you on this Monday morning, the 5th of March. Can you believe that? Just 1 month away from Easter. Spring break happening, folks, across the Atlantic coast, the Gulf Coast, many areas, in our area especially, schools already letting out for spring break. Although I'm not sure, after the nor'easter has moved in over the weekend, that there's a lot of beach going. There's been a lot of flooding on the New England coast, up as far as Maine and Vermont, New Hampshire, New England, Connecticut, and even all the way down into the Carolinas. We've seen flooding. We've seen rain. Some parts of the country's received snow, heavy, heavy winds. In fact, in the Virginia and the Carolinas, we had wind gusts of 70 miles an hour, which is a Category 1 hurricane, and across the country, they have had a lot of crazy weather as well. Part of what they're calling the nor'easter, another blast of cold air meeting moisture coming up from the Gulf. And so I'm not sure about the beachfront, what it looks like right now, but it is, in many areas, the beginning of spring break. I told you before we went to break that we had a lot of information and things coming up to share with you, and I do want to remind you that on our last radio show we talked about de-escalation, and we do have a part 2, and we'll bring that to you next week if this discussion about school security doesn't turn into a 2-parter, but we'll see. But we'll bring that to you, so just hold on, and we'll get that to you as well. A lot of things that we need to talk about, and sometimes we just don't have the opportunity in the format here to really address information to you in the way that we would like to. Now, we're setting up a number of conference calls for members and non-members alike to be involved, and we'll be announcing those in the upcoming week or 2, and we'd love for you to jump on and join in the conversation. And we're also going to be broadcasting on Facebook Live and doing a number of other outreach programs in order for us to be able to communicate one-on-one with you as well as a group and get your input. One of the things that I do want to hear from you about is how do we improve school security? What is your thought about school security? Who should be in charge? What type of programs, systems, equipment should we put in place? Send us an email, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. helpdesk@privateofficer.com. We have a number of training opportunities coming up for you right now. In fact, in several areas, we're going to be holding a 2-day active shooter training. Day one is going to be for those who just want active shooter training. These are going to be scenario-based. Hear it, feel it, see it, smell it, live it. We put stress, sound, lights, and a whole bunch of other components together to bring this active shooter course. Day two will be for instructor certification. If you're interested in becoming a certified active shooter instructor, be sure, if you're not on our email blast system, be sure to send us your email at helpdesk@privateofficer.com or go to our website right now at privateofficer.org, privateofficer.org, and sign up for our breaking news alerts and our training alerts and our newsletters, and that way you won't miss a thing. Of course, you'll want to follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Those are our two primary social media platforms that we're using these days, even though we have a number of others. But those are our main social media platforms where everyone is following us, and we have a lot of great conversations happening on Facebook, so don't miss out. Follow us there today. We don't want to go any further without first thanking our sponsor, Body Armor USA. We've got what it takes to protect you. Now, Body Armor USA, a great company in New York, friends of ours, POI members. They've got some great gear to protect you, whether you're working in corrections or law enforcement, security, whatever you're doing on the front line, they offer great body wear. I mean, I'm talking about clothing, gloves, body armor, whatever it takes to protect you. Look them up today at Body Armor USA and tell them that you're a member of POI. They're going to give you a discount just for saying that. Body Armor USA, a great company. We've got what it takes to protect you. Be sure also that you are following us on YouTube, and of course that you're following all of our training schedule. If you need any type of online training, regulatory training, or you'd like to sponsor a active shooter course, a church security course, or something of that nature at your school, business, or church, send us an email, helpdesk@privateofficer.com, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Are you looking for a job? Are you looking for work? Do you need some income? Well, I do. Just send me some money. No. We are hiring in a number of states. We're especially looking for DCJS, qualified firearm instructors in Virginia. If you're a firearms instructor, please send us your resume, Carrie, C-A-R-R-I-E, at Armour College, A-R-M-O-U-R, college.org. If you are a SPO instructor in D.C., or you're an instructor for North Carolina or for SLED, send us your resume. We are really needing good qualified people. We're also looking for advanced qualified American Red Cross instructors and a whole lot more. Check it out today simply by sending us your email and resume, Carrie@armourcollege.org, and we will schedule and sponsor you if you need a sponsor. We'll schedule an interview with you, and I think you won't regret it. I think you'll be quite surprised as to what we do offer. What's in the news, you ask? Well, funny you should ask that, because there's a lot in the news. In Little Rock, Arkansas, a bank security officer who was called to assist a teller was knocked unconscious by a man who tellers would not cash his check because of possible fraudulent activities. He knocked the security officer unconscious, beat her, and took her gun. He was later apprehended by police. Right now, it seems like there's a big, huge problem with unlicensed marijuana dispensary security officers. One was arrested in San Bernardino on Friday during a raid, and about 10 days ago, 2 other security officers, unlicensed security officers in California, were arrested at another dispensary, marijuana dispensary, and it seems to be a real issue in California. In Scottsdale, Arizona, police say a Homeland Security agent fatally shot a suspect in the parking lot of a business. Police say that they were investigating the suspect at about 9:30 a.m. when he pulled the firearm as he exited the vehicle. An ICE agent shot and killed him. Virginia Beach schools announced last week that they're going to install electronic security buzzers in their whole school system. All schools will be on lockdown. There will be no access to any of the schools. You'll have to buzz your way in through a camera system and another security layer, and it's going to cost about $282,000. Santa Rosa police in California say that they were involved in a shooting during an attempted robbery of an armored car facility. One of the men, police say, that was shot is in critical condition. Police said that they learned of this attempted robbery and they set up to take the suspects down when the shooting occurred. Minneapolis Community and Technical College public safety officers nabbed a rape suspect after being told that a man had taken a woman into a restroom and attempted to sexually assault her. Campus officers quickly detained the suspect and had him in custody before law enforcement arrived. In Hickman, Kentucky, a police officer there was killed in the line of duty. Police officer Rodney Smith was killed after his vehicle, his patrol vehicle, was washed away into a flooded field during a flooding situation. He drowned, and according to law enforcement officers, his body was recovered early Saturday morning. Also, a Deputy Sheriff Alexis Locklear was killed, 24 years old, 9 months on the job in Scotland County, North Carolina, during a car accident while responding to assist another officer who was in a pursuit. In Pennsylvania, police there say 2 men have been arrested after, well, let's just say that they had the wrong business plan. They went to Virginia and began stealing PetSmart supplies to stock their own pet supply business. So very little overhead, but a lot of risk. Police say Joseph Heim, 42, and Timothy Erb, 24, both in Pennsylvania, were arrested. In Virginia, they're also wanted in North Carolina and several other states for stealing about $300,000 of pet goods, PetSmart store goods, property, to, start their own business. In Washington, D.C., a story last week said that most security personnel who watch over the Washington, D.C. nightclubs are not male. They're actually female. And in fact, in other areas, we've seen this to become the trend as well. They say that you don't need brawn. You need to be able to talk to people and de-escalate them. And therefore, many bars and nightclubs hire female bouncers and nightclub security. Shots were fired in North Las Vegas, Nevada last week at a marijuana dispensary. Police say that 2 men were asked to leave the property after a disagreement at the facility, and as they left, they began shooting at the facility. The security officer fired several rounds back. Police say nobody was injured. The suspects are large and An investigation is underway. Hazelwood, Missouri. Authorities there call the security officer their granny, the hallway staple. She'd been at the school for many years. LaDonna Vaughn, a veteran security officer at the Hazelwood North Middle School, is known around the school property as Granny. She not only loves and respects each and every student, she provides security just like she was their mama. And she is being recognized this week for all that she does. We told you earlier about all of the shootings, fatal shootings that security officers have been involved in recently. In Madison, Wisconsin, security officers shot and killed a man attempting to rob a bank and may or may not have had a weapon. Police say that it turned out he did not, but he indicated that he did. And the security officer involved did fire the fatal shot. And right now it's under investigation, and really it could go either way. It really depends on who's sitting in the grand jury. You know, sometimes they see it the way that they should, and other times it's a 50-50 shot. They decide that the security or police officer should not have used that lethal force. In Kings Mountain, North Carolina, a man who was in custody of the Kings Mountain Police Department shot and killed himself while in the back of a police car. He was not searched or handcuffed very well, and he was able to pull a firearm and shoot himself in the head. The family now is saying that they're going to sue, and state law enforcement has taken over the case and is investigating how in the world they could allow a prisoner to be unhandcuffed and unsearched in the back of their car. You probably already heard this, but Central Michigan University student James Eric Davis Jr. fatally shot his parents on the campus in a dorm on Friday, early Saturday, when they came to pick him up on spring break. He had just been released from a hospital due to some drug usage and got into an argument with his parents, the father being a law enforcement officer, and shot and killed both of them in the dorm. After a manhunt, they did locate the son, the student, and they have him in custody at this time. A police officer in Lebanon, Tennessee, who went missing after getting off the job, after working a 12-hour shift, went missing and was later found dead in another county. His vehicle crashed off the road. He was thrown out of the vehicle. Evidently, Joe Bowen, 28, may have fallen asleep or had some type of medical emergency. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. Authorities in Florida busted 3 people who plotted to rob and kill armored truck security officers. At least 3 people were involved in this high-drama plot to kill all the security officers of at least 2 armored cars carrying millions of dollars. But luckily, police had undercover personnel, and they were able to gain information about the robbery, and they took them down in a movie-like high-drama takedown on Interstate 95 in Martin County on February the 20th at 9 a.m. The information was just released last week. They were able to take all the suspects into custody, thank goodness. And, this just goes to show you really don't know what's happening behind the scenes, who's plotting what. But I will tell you this, the life of a security officer is, it's very dangerous, the work that frontline protectors do, whether you're security or private police, public safety, loss prevention. The times, my friend, they are a-changing. We are going to take another break. Be sure to follow our breaking news. There's always breaking news happening 24/7, and we're always posting all of those great news stories and information. Be sure that you sign up for our breaking news today at privateofficer.org. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got a lot more to talk about. I know it's early in the program, but we've got a lot of information and great stuff to share with you. So don't go away. We'll be right back here on the Private Officer Beat.
You're on your way to meet up with friends, but you can't seem to get anywhere quickly. You don't want your friends to be annoyed, so you text. You're on your way. seconds is the average time your eyes are off the road while texting while driving. Make sure you get where you're going.
Explosion, and I remember just opening my eyes and it got both of my legs. I had surgery after surgery, and what's going to happen next? The Wounded Warrior Project said, look brother, everything's going to be okay. 3 months from now, 4 months from now, a year from now, you'll be fine. I don't know if I would be as well adjusted as I am now if it wasn't for them.
To learn more, call 1-877-832-6997 or visit Wounded.
All right, we are back with you. Be sure to check us out at privateofficer.org. Sign up for membership today. We've got both annual, yearly memberships as well as lifetime membership. More than 40 benefits, great resources, discount training, and a whole lot more waiting for you at privateofficer.org. Well, school security. We've all heard, we've all been listening, we've all been watching, we've all know about what's happening in this country, not only with active shooter scenarios and incidents, but also with the school shooting situations. And we're not here to debate whether or not it's good to take actions against gun control, whether it's good to take action against those psychologically unstable. We know, those of us who are supporters of the Second Amendment, those of us who understand how to secure a school and what drives an active shooter to be engaged in those events, we know what happens. But the bottom line is this: school security, church security, and even workplace violence needs to be addressed. We need, as business owners, as a society, as a community, to come together with some answers, and I don't think they're going to come from the government, regardless of who the president is. The bottom line is this: as long as there have been people, and as long as there are people on this earth, as long as life continues, people will take advantage of others, and unfortunately, people will kill other people. And so it was in biblical days, so it was as the West was wild, and so it will be until the end of time. However, there are certain things that we can do to protect ourselves. School security. Did you know that prior to the early 1950s, there was no such thing as school security? In fact, when I was growing up in school, and I was in elementary school or grade school, we didn't have security. We didn't lock our doors. My first year of high school, there was no security. There was no school resource officers. And now, there is a necessity that they be everywhere. In fact, Flint, Michigan was the first city to begin using school resource officers, sworn police officers. In 1963, Tucson, Arizona also put a couple of their sworn police officers in several of their schools. In 1966, Saginaw, Michigan followed. 67, Cincinnati, Ohio. 68, Los Angeles, California. And 69, Miami, Florida, jump on board and put a couple of uniformed officers in their high schools and began the school resource officer programs as we know it today. Prior to all of this from happening, there was no camera systems, there was no buzzards at the door, there was no type of physical security. Teachers, principals, a few schools had hall monitors. That was security. And they kept a watchful eye on the property, on the students, on the visitors. But things have changed. And as we see now, we need to up our game and to secure our schools in a much more physical method. So after another school shooting that took the lives of 17 and injured others, politicians, students, parents, the government, everybody now has a plan to secure the schools. A knee-jerk reaction, just like every time there's an active shooter at a church or a school, the same thing occurs. Well, first, let's look back at why law enforcement began being placed at the schools to begin with. They were there to secure the outer perimeter, the parking lots. They were there to present a physical presence of security. The SRO job was to be seen, was to be a patrolman at the school. They were primarily external physical security. But through the years, that's changed. And most SROs are no place in sight. You can't see school security, whether they be contract or SROs from the police department. You seldom see them unless you go inside the buildings. SROs are now counselors. They're mentors, disciplinarians. They're gophers. They go here, they go there, they do this, they do that. A dozen things that are not security related, not law enforcement related, and actually a waste of taxpayer money to have them doing the jobs that they're doing. Because the job of the SRO and school security is to protect physically the building and the property and those within. And you can't do that when you're sitting in the principal's office talking about a discipline problem, or you're sitting in the teacher's lounge flirting with the teacher, or you're God knows where, someplace on the property, and during a shooting, no one knows where you're at. The premise of school security and church security and physical security is to stop the threat before it ever makes its way inside the building. When I teach church security and school security, I often use the analogy of when I was, for a short time, a bug man. I worked for a company that provided bug extermination and consultation, and I learned in my training that you don't wait until they make access into your apartment, your condo, your house. You want to kill them outside. You want to put a perimeter around the building so that they can't gain access. You want to kill the termites right where they begin to enter the property. Because once they get into the wood, they're hungry, like beavers in the forest, like beavers in the dam. They will begin to eat and eat and eat. Before you know it, you're going to have to start replacing a bunch of wood. So just like them, just like the exterminator, stopping the bugs from getting inside right there at the point of outside before they get in, we want to stop the perpetrator outside. And you can't do that if school security and school resources officers are inside in the classroom reading or wherever they might be. We need to be posted up outside. We need to be vigilant. We need to be where we can see what's happening in the parking lots, where we can see students and suspicious persons coming and going. We need to make sure that we have access to all points. That means we need to have, in many of the school systems, multiple officers at the high school. We need to have a good surveillance system where we're able to constantly monitor the property and see the problems, whether that be from a control room, whether that be from a dispatch center. We need to have that perimeter secured by cameras and fences. We got to make it more harder for people to get into the school property. Stop the threat outside. Many people who become involved as active shooters go to the school, go to the church, go to the workplace where they've had a problem with either the people bullying them or the employer not respecting them, talking down to them, or employees who have had a conflict. There's a lot of different reasons why active shooters go where they go. And it's important that you understand the profile of an active shooter. It's important that you understand physical security. It's important that we all understand that in order to secure a property, it's going to take money. It's going to take equipment, and it's going to take manpower. You can spend millions of dollars on salaries of people sitting inside the building. But when the threat occurs, it's going to be too late. It's already going to be inside. And at that point, there's going to be some lives lost and others seriously wounded. Our job in law enforcement and security is to use every tool available to us to build all the components that we need to put the manpower behind those components to really harden the target. But until school systems and churches and businesses realize what it really takes to secure a premise, to stop the threat outside, to save the lives of our kids, our community, our staff, our folks in the church, until we realize what it's really going to take, it's going to continue to happen. We need to have, let me just tell you this, you can go to some high swanky clubs, nightclubs, and they've got metal detectors that you got to walk through. I visited a children's school recently, and they had metal detectors and security staff everywhere, albeit unarmed, but they had them. Airports have metal detectors and security, different layers of security, including armed law enforcement. And that's what it's going to take to secure our schools, our churches, our businesses. That's what it's going to take to save a life. We need to provide layered security from the outside in. Camera systems, fences, armed, trained security and law enforcement, metal detectors, equipment, and manpower. And until we do that, sadly, the headlines will read another shooting. More deaths have occurred. That concludes this episode of the Private Officer Beat Radio, and we're glad that you've been listening. Be sure to send us an email, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Let us know how we can help you, and if you're interested in a position, be sure to contact Kerry over at armorcollege.org. Until the next time, be safe, be blessed, and we'll see you back here on the radio.